Okay, so this is our part 2 of Phylum Arthropoda lecture. And again, remember, please keep in mind, this is just very, very light, not even scratching the surface, general information about arthropods. It is a vast and diverse phylum. Lots and lots of important aspects. What I do want you guys to get out of this: key features. So we talked about those in a previous lecture. What are kind of key unique features about arthropods? And then what are the major lineages that are listed under phylum Arthropoda? Now, how these are organized, don't worry about it. Some group or some organizations put these as subphylums, and then you drop down to, so you'd have phylum Arthropoda. Some people put these as subphylums, and then we get down to classes. I'm not worried about that. I just want you guys to understand here's the 4 key lineages of arthropods. Each of these groups have some kind of unique tweaks to the general arthropod features that make them different. Okay, so first lineage, Chelicerata. Now the key things that go in Chelicerata are going to be spiders, ticks, mites, should be, and horseshoe crabs. So those weird things that kind of resemble the trilobites. You guys remember those? The horseshoe crab looks very similar to a trilobite. So, okay, so some big key things about these guys. They have a chelicera. The chelicera is the first appendage, or we say the foremost appendage of the arthropod. So these guys right here, not the fang. Fangs are attached to the chelicera in spiders. Scorpions, same thing. First appendage. Actually, it's modified in these big giant pinchers. So they have the chelicera. They have a cephalothorax. And then these things called pedipalps. Pedipalps are going to be the second pair of appendages. I'm just going to put that instead of smashing it into the scorpion picture. All right. Most of them will have 4 pairs of walking legs. Uh-oh. There we go. 4 pairs of walking legs on their abdomen. So if you count it up on a spider, pair 1, 2, 3, 4. Do the same thing on a scorpion. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So 4 pairs of walking legs. By and large, all these guys are carnivores. So ecologically, members of Chelicerata are going to be carnivores. So huge diversity of what they feed upon. They can feed upon other insects or other arthropods. They can feed upon mollusks, worms, members of the annelids, etc. So lots and lots of diversity out there. All right, so again, just broad overview here. So, all right, second group, Crustacea, crustaceans. This includes our crabs, shrimp, our lobster, and things like copepods. And pill bugs, or we often call them roly-polies. Okay, so all sorts, there's copepod, all sorts of diversity within Crustacea. When we talk about environmental, these guys can be across every habitat type on Earth: freshwater, marine water, terrestrial, etc. They will have a cephalothorax. They will have 2 pair of antennae. So we'll see antennae on these guys instead of those modified mouth parts with their first pairs of appendages. They will have 3 pair of appendages that are used for feeding. So their mouth parts are actually kind of cool. They're modified appendages that they use for manipulating food and pulling food and doing all sorts of stuff with food. A big feature of the Crustacea, or crustaceans, is that they will have what's known as a nopulous larval stage. So this is a huge key to identifying a crustacean when you're looking at the larval stage. It's this nopulous larval stage. That's this thing right here. Remember the veliger stage for the mollusk? The nopulous larval stage is a big identifying feature for crustaceans. People who specialize in this can look at that larval stage and say, oh, that's going to evolve, or not evolve, that will develop or metamorphosis into a crab or into a shrimp or into a lobster or the blue crab, etc. We'll see separate sexes. You'll have males and females, and then external fertilization. So in the case of these blue crabs up here, males, you can see they have a little point underneath, the tower as we call it. Females, it's rounded. So again, we see unique, distinct sexes when we talk about the Crustacea. So again, huge economic value. Think about what it costs for lobster or shrimp or crab when you guys go out to eat somewhere. So, all right, so that's number 2. Briefly, Hexapoda. These are going to be things we call insects. Biggest group of organisms on Earth in regards to number and diversity. Again, you guys, I encourage you and would support you all the way. You want to do something new in science, study insects. Largest diversity out there. Earliest evolution of insects goes back about 360 million years. They're some of the earliest land-based animals. Producers made their way onto land. Algae evolves into early plants. Plants create the base of the food chain. Then you have insects evolving onto land, and then other groups make their way evolutionarily onto land. Primarily land-based and freshwater. We have very limited insect diversity in the marine environment. Something just to mention, with insects, quite often they have an aquatic stage of the life cycle, the early stage, and then as a metamorphosis, they move on to land as adults. Huge connection. They're incredibly important when we study aquatic ecology to understand insects and be able to identify their early larval stages or early developmental stages when they're in the water. That's a barometer of what's going on ecologically in a community. So if you don't have certain insects in the water, you got a big problem. So we'll circle back to this later on. So, all right, so big key features. How do we identify it as an insect versus a crustacean versus all those other guys? Let's take a look at the body. 3-part body, very distinct. Head, thorax, abdomen. So you think about insects, 3 distinct body parts. When we talk about the eyes, they have compound eyes. Those are the big fly eyes down there, so they can see lots and very good at seeing things. The mouth parts are adapted to all sorts of different feeding apparatuses or feeding preferences. Some of the mouth parts are specific to feeding off of plant material, others are feeding off of animal material, just some crazy, crazy adaptations across this group. And there's just a lot out there because they're so diverse and so much variation in them. And then, as I said, we see a huge, huge diversity. Digestive system is a complete digestive system. So food goes in the mouth, goes through digestive structures, and waste products get excreted out the back end, the anus. Respiration, they're going to use those little tubes, those tracheal tubes for respiration, little openings on their body wall called spiracles that allow respiration to occur. And the body of these guys is just loaded with tiny little sensory setae, little hairs that detect movement, chemicals, etc. Lots and lots of ability to detect environmental stimulus here. And when we go back to that development, they go through a developmental process. Egg develops into a larva and all the way through these stages. They follow one of two patterns. One pattern is called incomplete metamorphosis. This is only about 10% of all insects. And when we look at incomplete, the larva resembles the adult form in incomplete metamorphosis. So they call them nymphs. These resemble the adults. Most insects, and this is what makes it so difficult, most insects follow complete metamorphosis. The larva does not resemble the adult form. So to study insects, you have to study all different stages of their life cycle and understand that this caterpillar will actually metamorphosize into the monarch butterfly. So it makes it really more challenging to be an expert in insects because of you're learning various body forms and appearances and shapes to understand one species. So more challenging, but much more opportunity to, again, do new things here. So, okay, last major group, big broad picture here, the Myriapoda. This will be where the centipedes and the millipedes are organized. So centipedes, look at the body plan, cephalothorax, you got cephalothorax, and then here's all the abdominal segments of the millipede here. Carnivores, now the identifying feature of centipedes, one set of legs per segment of the trunk. Millipedes, two pairs of legs. Got to zoom in, see if I can zoom in. Oh, making me sick. Sorry. Two pairs of legs per segment of the trunk. Still have a cephalothorax, but two pairs of legs per segment. Millipedes, completely different ecological role. Detritivores, herbivores, eating dead, decaying organic material. Centipedes, they're going to go out and kill other things. They're predators. They're carnivores. So, all right. So again, very, very broad overview. I could spend an entire semester just on phylum Arthropoda, but we don't have that luxury of time. Big picture, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, we get down to order. There's over 30 different orders within certain groups of arthropods, just huge diversity out there. So broad spectrum here is what I want you guys to remember. Big picture stuff. Don't get bogged down in all the little, and don't even worry about trying to get down into the little details. Just what makes an arthropod, what makes a crustacean, hexapoda. Kind of the big overview picture is what we're aiming for here. This is just to get you a little bit of a background, so as you come across this material in future courses, you can say, okay, I remember a little bit of that. Now let me get more detail as I move on.